you for being with us today, for sharing your time with us, and for supporting this platform that shows us some really significant results so far. It is my honor, and I'm really happy to have our today guest speaker, Excellency Ambassador Kathleen Kavalec, head of the OSCE mission in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time, and we are really, really happy to have you here today with us.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's very nice to meet everyone, even if it's just virtually.
Yes, something that we are used to say on our previous coffees and events is, even though this is a virtual event and virtual coffee, we are really looking forward to some opportunity in the near future or in future to have you in our city and to have some real coffee, not only with you, but also with the other staff members, and to see on which exact ways we can cooperate and meet each other more. If I don't make any mistake here, you are recently appointed as a head of the mission. So for the beginning, you can tell us how actually everything goes so far, and what are your first impressions about the country and about the people and everything that you see here?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And let me also start out by saying that I think this is a great initiative on part of Cerebra. I think, you know, right now where everybody's stuck at home and the schools are closed, it's great to come up with something new and creative to do. So congrats on a good idea. I have two of my kids are in university right now. One of them studying political science. So they're both on Zoom every day doing classes and things. So I'm thinking of them right now as I talk to you. My background is also I studied political science at the university at Berkeley. I joined the Foreign Service more than 30 years ago, the US Foreign Service, and I've worked for the US State Department all over the world, primarily in former Soviet Union, Russia, Ukraine, Romania. And the way that OSCE works is the OSCE is an organization of participating states. There are 57 member states, and the staff of the OSCE is part of it is appointed by member states. So member states can appoint people, propose people, and appoint them for certain positions, such as the ambassadorships. So in my case, I was appointed, I was nominated by the United States and appointed by the OSCE to be the ambassador to Bosnia and Herzegovina on behalf of the OSCE. I don't work for the United States in this capacity. I work for all 57 participating states, including Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is one of the participating states of the OSCE. So I arrived in September, so I haven't been here all that long, a little over 6 months. I have to say it's a beautiful country. I've really enjoyed, when I first got here, I spent a lot of time traveling to see all our field offices. The OSCE has headquarters in Sarajevo, but field offices, 8 field offices, including one of our largest in Banja Luka. So I've been to Banja Luka, I think about 3 times already. And we were talking earlier, the picture behind me is one I took when I visited Banja Luka last year on my first trip. So my initial months were spent traveling, getting to know the country, meeting people, meeting the leaders, and then also learning about all the work of our mission. We have a very large mission here. We have over 300 employees, about 280 local employees from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and about 40 international employees, and they are all from OSCE participating states. So for example, the head of our Banja Luka office is a Russian, and the head of our office in Foča is an Italian. And so we have, in Brčko district, we have a Czech person as our head of field office. So we have a very international mission. And we are engaged in lots of activities. We were brought here through the Dayton Peace Agreement. The Dayton Peace Agreement gave the OSCE a role in organizing elections and supporting the establishment of peace and democratic processes in the country. So we have been here for 25 years. This will be our 25th anniversary, and we have been very active over the years. Primarily, we started with elections, but we're engaged in a lot of other areas as well. We work in 3 dimensions here, as we call them. We have the first dimension, which is political, military, and security. And that involves such things as arms control, destruction of small arms and light weapons left over from the war, countering violent extremism, disaster risk reduction. In the second dimension, we work in environment and economic issues. And I should mention that one of the things we do is we work with the Our House centers, which are environmental centers in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and which have offices in Sarajevo, Tuzla, and Banja Luka, and implement various capacity building and awareness raising activities. And I want to mention this because one of the things we did last year was we did a semester-long environmental legal clinic program for university law students to help develop expertise in environmental law. And then in the third dimension, that's what we call the human dimension. So human rights, gender equality, parliamentary support, anti-corruption, war crimes processing, discrimination, anti-trafficking, and education. So those are some of the key areas where we work. And maybe I'll just stop there because I've given you a lot of background, but maybe I'd be interested in hearing your questions about our mission or our work or anything else you might want to talk about.
Thank you so much for all of these information. Several of questions also that I got in my mind were related already with those things that you previously mentioned and said here. So yes, OSCE mission is a significant partner, and as you said, 25 years of presence in Bosnia and Herzegovina with a huge responsibility and role in organizing and implementing actually first, let's say, after war elections. So the role of OSCE within our democracy building here is huge. But democracy, environment, arms control, security, those are all important areas, but actually not the only areas that the OSCE is working and is engaged here in Bosnia with. I'm also really honored and happy for this opportunity, and somehow this event is really special event for me because I'm one of the former youth advisory group members that OSCE established, and as I think OSCE is the first kind of stakeholder or international actor here in Bosnia that established such a group of young people and wanted to hear more from young people from this country. What do they think about the future? So I really want to thank again to whole mission and to all my friends and colleagues. I'm in alumni status right now, and as you mentioned, 25 years of presence here. I remember like it was yesterday when we were celebrating 20 years together in Sarajevo of OSCE mission in Bosnia. Also, there is a huge topic nowadays that we, even though we actually kind of want to skip, we cannot skip. It's coronavirus. I would be interesting to hear more. Maybe how do you see maybe the consequences that this virus and epidemic and pandemic will affect on our society? And how it is maybe related with the security issues and questions that we are facing with here.
Yeah, well, those are huge questions, not just for Bosnia and Herzegovina, but for every country right now. We're all dealing with this pandemic. I guess the first thing I would say is I was pleased to see that Bosnia and Herzegovina, that the authorities acted very quickly, relatively quickly compared to some other countries in taking the virus seriously and in implementing restrictive measures to stop the spread or slow the spread of the virus. And that's critical, because I think if you look around the world, the countries that acted quickly have been able to avoid some of the worst impacts of the virus, at least so far. You know, if you compare what's happened in Spain and Italy, or even right now in the United States, I think it's been, you know, a good thing to see here that the authorities essentially bought time to improve the preparations of the healthcare system to handle patients, because we all know that the system here, you know, is not the strongest healthcare system. So it was really critical to act right away. So that, I think, is good. And now, of course, the question that arises is, you know, when is the right time to start lifting some of those restrictions? And there's a huge pressure, I think, all over the world, you know, to try to loosen the restrictions, because, of course, people, it's having a negative impact, negative economic impact on people, and it's having, you know, an impact on everyday lives. And some people are cut off, and, you know, so all kinds of problems that are being created. So the question is, when can countries get back to normal? And the longer that these restrictions go on, of course, the bigger the impact on the economy, the bigger the impact on people's lives. Today, I was fortunate to listen to a presentation by the UN and the World Health Organization representative here in Bosnia and Herzegovina about the status of the virus here in BiH, and the efforts that the UN and the WHO are taking, and also addressing the question of, is it time yet to raise the restrictions or lift the restrictions? And what I heard was, you know, first of all, well, BiH has been successful in slowing the spread of the virus and kind of flattening the curve, if you've heard that term, about preventing a spike in cases. In the last couple of days, there has been an increase. So so just both with that and the certain preparations that still need to be improved in terms of testing and tracing, that the conditions are probably not yet ready for, you know, lifting all the restrictions. Particularly, they need to wait a little longer to see whether this is just a short or a small spike and it will continue to go down, or if this suggests there's going to be an increase again. So I think the most immediate question is, you know, how long to continue these restrictions, and then when they're lifted, is the country in a position to trace and stay on top of the virus? Because I think what some other countries are showing, the ones that had the infections early, like Japan, is, well, they were able to control the spread of the virus for a while. Then after you lift the restrictions, sometimes you have new outbreaks. So you have to be prepared to address those outbreaks right away. But long term, I mean, I think there will be a lot of impacts on the security. You have a lot of BiH citizens returning to the country now who were working abroad. So that will bring new pressure on the country. You have more limitations on travel. You know, so there are a lot of economic pressures for people who haven't been able to work. Probably lots of impacts on you know, economic imports and exports. we heard a presentation today about all of these likely economic impacts, which will be pretty profound, particularly as other economies are suffering as well. But on the positive side, it's really been encouraging to see that BiH has not been forgotten by the international community, that a number of international donors have donated protective equipment, they've donated medical equipment, they have come forward with funding. And so, you know, the good news is that the authorities in the country are pretty much working together. It may not be perfect, but there's a lot more cooperation than we've seen in a while, and a support coming from the outside. So I think, and some very strong actors here, the UN and the EU, that are prepared to be of help. So I think it's certainly a daunting picture ahead, but it's also good to see that there are sources of support and help going forward.
Thank you. Yes, regarding all of this situation that we're all facing with right now with the coronavirus, how would you describe, what would you say about the work and those tasks and the job that actually Mission was doing previously? Are there some, let's say, projects, activities, processes stopped right now, and what can you say about maybe some next steps and plans of the mission regarding the implementing different projects and things here in Bosnia?
Yeah, obviously, you know, the pandemic has had a huge impact. First of all, we're all working from home. You know, most of us, except for a few that have to go in to do a few things now and then. And of course, all the counterparts, the people we work with, are also working from home. And of course, they're focused on other issues right now than what, you know, they were doing before. But I've been surprised at how effective we still can be by using tools like this one, Zoom and other conferencing. And thank goodness we have the internet. You guys are all probably too young to know what life was like before the internet. But if we were going through a pandemic right now without the internet, you know, it would be very different, you know, for sure. And the fact that we can share information so quickly, that if there's a development in China or somewhere else that can help us address the problem we're facing here, you know, we have the ability to share information quickly. So in terms of our work, of course, we kind of reoriented to try to make sure that we're providing the type of support that our counterparts need. For instance, when it comes to parliaments, you know, we support, you know, part of our work is to support democratic governance. And so for parliaments that needed help learning how to use IT systems, for instance, so that they could continue their parliamentary work. We're continuing our work with the Central Electoral Commission, for instance. They are about to start live streaming their meetings or their sessions with our help, so that anyone can follow what's happening at the Central Electoral Commission as they decide, you know, how to carry out elections. So that's something that we've done. We're active working with ministries of education on virtual learning, helping them adjust to the new environment that you are all involved in. And also, we are not a large donor organization. We don't have a lot of money like the UN or the EU does, but we are donating some computers and to help some of the school or some of the cantons that don't have enough equipment or have people who don't have access to internet, to help with those with laptops and tablets. In the area of security, we continue to work with the Ministry of Security on issues like border security, identification of migrants, you know, tracking and taking steps to counter violent extremism. So a lot of the work continues. A lot of it we've had to adjust to this kind of online environment, and in some cases offering our counterparts help with making that change to these online platforms that some people have had, but some have not. So those are just a few examples. And I should mention that Jelka is with me here today from our mission. So if I forget anything, she can chime in. She's the head of our press and public information department.
Yes, some of us know Željka for a long time, and we had several chances to cooperate and to do some great initiatives and things together. As I wanted to mention and to say here that, as you said, there's not a large budget here that you can actually donate in terms of money and funding, but as the song says, it's not about money. So sometimes, right, related with the things that I was implementing with Željka while I was also on the faculty here in Banja Luka, we were trying to get our students in Sarajevo for one event there, and we didn't have any money, but we didn't have any kind of let's say opportunity or chance to go physically from Banja Luka to Sarajevo. So with the help of the OSCE mission, we got the vans. So there is a perfect way to cooperate, not only with receiving some money and funds, but also with some practical things and issues that mission actually can support. Regarding all of those initiatives, we were also implementing first ever held model OSCE in Bosnia and Herzegovina a few years ago. If I'm not wrong, it was 2018, Željka. It was also a nice event here in Banja Luka, and the tradition goes on. Faculty of Political Sciences in Banja Luka is hosting that event every year. So there are some perfect examples, and I'm really looking forward to cooperate more and for having all of these participants that they can actually hear what are the options on the table, so we can do more together here. My next question would be in this same example and sense. If we are talking about the NGO sector here in Bosnia, and if we are having in mind a lot of youth organizations, how would you describe their role in our society, and what do you think that NGOs can actually do more to be more visible or to be more concrete within the action here?
Well, from our perspective, NGOs play a huge role. And a vital role in any country, especially in a developing country like Bosnia and Herzegovina, and because it's a way for citizens to come together and address issues and address things that, for example, either governments are not addressing, or that governments where they're not, maybe providing the leadership that there needs to be. So NGOs are critical in every sector, and we work across, all of our three dimensions. We work with NGOs in almost all of our areas. I think NGOs always are, have a hard time of it because they don't have secure funding streams. So they really depend a lot on kind of the vision and the dynamism of the participants. But, in a democratic society that allows people to organize and work together, a lot of things can get solved through NGO activism. And, I think of so many examples from my country of issues that where major changes were affected in the way we do things thanks to the activism of NGOs. So, I think your NGO, other NGOs that work in different areas, whether it's helping people who are in need, or education, or activism with the government, all of those are critical. And I've met here in BiH already a lot of really impressive leaders. I have to say, of course, particularly women leaders. Some of the strongest people I've met have been, women who are doing amazing things in small towns or villages in BiH who see a problem and mobilize resources and people to address those problems.
Yes, exactly. If we are, I'm not sure, we were having somebody turned the microphone on. If I may ask that person to turn the microphone off so we can understand what we are talking about. Thank you. Yes, so my next question would be more related to the youth in this country. So as I mentioned previously, the OSCE mission is the only international organization and mission here in Bosnia that actually has some kind of direct support and asking young person for their opinion through established youth advisory group. And as some of us really know that youth issues and youth related questions and issues are the most top of the priorities of the OSCE mission and work here in Bosnia. So what would you say about young people here? We can hear a lot of topics in the public that young people are the power, that there should be more voices heard from young people and things like that. But do you think it is really like that related with the youth advisory group that mission has, or the young people are something totally different here? What would be your impression?
No, I mean, I think young people here are as talented and proactive as, pretty much anywhere. I think it always depends on the conditions in the country about how, how much space there is for young people to be active. And it also has to do, I think, with how people feel about their society. If they don't have trust in their institutions, to listen to them. I mean, I think one of the concerns that we have here is the level of migration of people leaving the country and going to work elsewhere and look for opportunities elsewhere. And that's obviously a function of the doubts about the education system, doubts about the ability to advance, worries about corruption. Feeling, people who are not happy with the politics, any of those things, so I don't think it's an issue with the young people. I think it's more a question of, is the environment conducive to listening to younger voices, to giving them space to advance, to being concerned about the issues that young people care about, like, education and jobs and opportunities. We're very proud of our youth advisory group, and we're glad that you have been you're an alumnus. You can tell us maybe more about your experience, and I think Željka also, who's been with the mission longer than I have, probably knows more. But what we worry about, I'll tell you, for instance, I was in Mostar, where I met with a mixed group of students from both Bosniak and Croat schools who were studying apart, but who would like to study together. They're music students. And I asked them about elections. And as you know, there haven't been elections for more than 10 years in Mostar. And I said, well, if there are elections this year, will you vote? And they were like, well, why bother? What will it change? And that's what I worry about, is people losing faith in a democracy and losing faith in the fact that their voices can be heard. So this is one reason why we continue to really insist on elections going forward and democratic processes. We're working this year to encourage authorities to go forward with the planning of the elections. Of course, COVID-19 is a concern, and we have to see what the situation will be like in October, but that's no reason not to prepare for the elections. The planning should go forward. We should be, have everything in place so they can go forward. And if at the time, the pandemic is really bad, well, maybe they might have to be postponed for a little bit. But, it's really important to let these elections go forward and that they be transparent. I see there's some questions on the chat. Do you want me to start looking at those?
Yeah, we can slowly move on to those questions and to let other participants also to jump in and ask those questions. I can see Mario Cenkovic question here. He's interested. I think this is related with the initiative for the nuclear threat in Trgovska Gora, relations between Bosnia and Croatia. So Mario, please, can you join us and ask your question?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time, Your Excellency. For the start, can you tell us something more about the OSCE second dimension and your vision about that dimension? And maybe later about Trgovska Gora, if you have enough time.
And maybe later about what?
After this question.
Okay. Okay. Well, I would have to say that when it comes to the second dimension, which is economic and environmental issues, this is probably the area where we're least active, where we have the least amount of programs. But it's also an area where we're interested in expanding our activities because the environment is, for two reasons. One, because the environment is important, and two, because we see that there is a lot of interest in the environment and that it's an issue that can bring people together across, divisions, across ethnic divisions and other divisions. People are willing to work together when they have a common goal, and the environment is a good goal. For example, we have an office in Durbar that has worked with mountaineering groups who have come together to develop a network of trails, clean and develop trails for hiking. And it's a great way to kind of build trust in the community and bring people together. So we want to do more going forward in environmental areas. At the moment, a lot of what we do is in coordination with the Our House centers that I mentioned earlier, that exist in Sarajevo, Tuzla, and Banja Luka. And these that involves kind of education, capacity building, awareness activities. We've done trainings for members of the judiciary and civil servants, and particularly in the area of disaster risk reduction. And that's important because some of the environmental degradation makes the country more susceptible to disasters. For example, the dumping of things in the rivers, for instance, that later can lead to floods or other problems like that. A lot of the things we do at our field office level. So, for example, organizing cleanup campaigns and activities against illegal dumping. And another area is kind of economic empowerment of women, particularly in smaller villages and things like that. Željka has been involved in some of that as well. I don't know if she wants to add anything.
I can. Let me just unmute myself. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, and thank you both Miloš and Ambassador for the opportunity to speak. As far as economic dimension of our involvement is concerned, we do it on two levels. One is anti-corruption efforts, and I hope that you were able also to see some of our bits and pieces of the campaigns that we supported, in which we call for citizens, namely of Republika Srpska, because that one we did with RTRS, to report on cases of corruption, and we are extending that forward as well. We did another very important issue, very important project with the Canton Sarajevo. We provided software for tracking spaces for corruption within government, and now the other cantons are also very interested, hopefully other entities as well, very interested to have that software within their communities. That's one aspect, and the one that I know more of because I was involved in it more is economic empowerment of women. As Ambassador was saying, we supported a number of small projects, yet important ones, such as support single moms in how to organize their entrepreneurship efforts. We also keep bringing different NGOs. Most of them are women NGOs, but not necessarily and not only women empowerment. Just NGOs that we brought to Sarajevo Diplomatic Winter Bazaar. It happens to be in Sarajevo, it's Diplomatic Winter Bazaar. We wanted to provide an opportunity for private entrepreneurs to sell their products, because we believe that an event that gathers around 15,000 people, it's a solid market for some small entrepreneurs. We will keep doing that as well. Another project that we got involved in as far as economic empowerment is just to tell a story. I know that there are among us here today, there are at least 2 journalists, from what I can tell from the names. The ones that I recognize. We want to tell a story. For an example, this COVID pandemic messed up with our plans to publish a story about rural women of Daljegošta village near Srebrenica, which gathered to organize. They organize themselves, and they are a group of entrepreneurs. Now, we wanted to publish this, but now it's not maybe the right time, but we will definitely do this later. So in a nutshell, that would be our economic aspect of our involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Željka, so much. Maybe we can continue on with the questions and with our participants, letting them to jump in this conversation. We have Aida Begić-Alukić here. So Aida, if you hear us, please join.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay,
perfect.
Hi. Hello, everyone. So my question is actually concerning the education in Bosnia. I myself, I work in high school and in elementary school as English teacher. And in January, we had a lady who was coming from your OSCE department, and she was from Drvar, I think. And she was presenting the protocol about the peer violence and how to act and so on. And we didn't have enough time. She was talking about the protocol, and the lessons were during that time. So she couldn't really have all the time to explain. And she told us that there were some obstacles when she was working in some schools, and that there were some parents and teachers and other people who didn't really want to participate in all these events and taking place. So I'm more interested in that. What kind of obstacles are those? Things like people do not want to be there while she's talking about it, or they don't want to actually prevent the violence in schools? So what kind of obstacles are those? If you could answer, and thank you.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I know the details about our colleague or what she was referring to there. So I'll speak maybe a little more generally. I mean, I think we have good relationships with a lot of ministries of education, and we work with them to help, particularly with curriculum reform. And we've done a lot of work this year or the last year in connection with the PISA assessments you might have heard about, where BiH participated for the first time in an assessment of the quality of the secondary education through this OECD assessment tool, which is called PISA. And we worked a lot both to help that assessment take place, and then to help authorities understand what the assessment meant. We also do a lot of work in anti-discrimination and we have put out a report, I think in 2018, on the 2 schools under one roof, and helping people understand, you know, what discrimination looks like. And we worked on anti-discrimination policies with ministries of education. I mean, education, like in a lot of countries, is unfortunately very politicized in this country. And some of the principles that to us would seem as very straightforward about segregation and having, for example, a separation of students by background are very controversial topics, and there are certain, you know, forces and interests that don't want to see changes in those areas. And so I don't know if that, you know, was part of what she was referring to. Obviously, in any particular situation, you can have someone who is not interested or is feeling, you know, not supportive of change. I mean, I don't know what that situation was, but in general, we do see that there are some political interests that oppose anything that might lead to changes in policies. And for instance, I'll talk again about Mostar. You know, I mentioned that I met with these students who study music, and in Mostar there was at one time a very nice music school in the center of the city that was destroyed during the war, and it's been partially renovated, but it's still not in use because it hasn't been fully renovated, and the Turkish government is prepared to provide funding to finish the school, but one of the pedagogical institutes in the city refuses to agree to a joint curriculum for music for all students. And you know, for a long time we haven't been able to figure out why they oppose it, but what we've understood informally is that there's a fear that if the music students study together, there'll be pressure to allow other students to study together, and that, you know, there'll be pressure to combine the curriculum. So, you know, it's sometimes the opposition is not very clear, but it seems to be, you know, it revolves around fear of having the ability to keep people separate.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your questions, and please, I'm inviting all of you one more time. If you have any kind of concerns, questions, please do put them in our Zoom group chat, so we can announce you and give you the floor for asking them. In the meantime, I would be interested to maybe ask you a bit more about the thing that we were talking about a few moments ago, about the Central Electoral Commission and about the live streaming. So we know that the role of Central Electoral Commission is huge here. And a few days ago, when we had a coffee with Ambassador Field from UK in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we were mentioning that we think that actually young people are more aware and concerned about where is their vote going to end. And that is the main reason why they are actually doesn't want to go out on the polls on the election day. So what do you think? Is there going to be any kind of change in behavior or in our how to say habits for the election day, or the way that Commission is functioning with implementing these live streaming or making this process more transparent?
Yeah, can you clarify a little bit when you say they don't know where their votes are going to go? Does that mean that they think their votes could be, you know, redirected, or there would be fraud?
Yes, because we all actually know that it's kind of a public secret here, but usually on the places where you don't have any independent observers or the parts of the missions that are observing, those places are really manipulated by the local political authorities or politicians that are kind of buying those pull stops. And on that way, for example, if I go out and if I make some, let's say, circle, or I choose somebody on that list, I'm actually not sure if on the end of that day somebody will actually count my vote for that person, or because they have a, let's say, free hands with manipulating, with reading the same name for over and over, you know, because they lack of control.
Right. Yeah. So these are these are definitely the things that we're concerned about. And you may know that one of the OSCE institutions is the Office for Democracy and Human Rights, ODIHR, and they have come to BiH several times, and they have made recommendations to how to improve the credibility and the transparency of the elections. And there is a whole series of recommendations that they've made to improve the quality of the elections. But I would say most of those recommendations have never been adopted. So we have a long list of things that we say need to change. And some of them have to do with the conduct of the elections themselves, like, you know, observers and how the ballot boxes are done, etc. And some of it has to do with the campaign period, like funding, sources of funding, and where's the funding coming from and who's getting the funding, because there's a lot of untransparent funding issues. So yes, and we work with the CEC, but not only to encourage changes that will improve the quality of the elections. So with the CEC, what they can do without legislative changes are changes to the bylaws. And we're doing that right now, working with them on some of those recommendations, and they are open to those changes, and we are working with ODIHR to review the changes, and so they get adopted. But a lot of what needs to happen needs to be, are changes that need to be adopted by Parliament. And for obvious reasons, there's a fair amount of resistance in Parliament to some of the changes. You know, I've talked to some mayors and local leaders who are also very concerned about corruption, and who, for example, mailing in votes from other countries, from Croatia and Serbia, you know, lots of things that are happening. So we've, with the help of some other countries like Norway, we've helped obtain transparent ballot boxes, so people can see where the ballots are going. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and we continue to push for that. But one of the biggest challenges has been the lack of political will at the level of the parliaments to make those changes. Right now, we're focused on the upcoming municipal elections for October, but we're also looking at the national elections for 2 years later, because a lot of that's, you know, really where we want to see, you know, the legislative change has to happen before that, and we'll push for that. Also, Mostar is a big problem because they have not had elections for 12 years now. So we're pushing, and that's also a political issue. You know, it's two major parties need to come to some kind of agreement so that can move forward. And if now there's a European Court of Human Rights decision that says that if the parties can't agree in Parliament to make the necessary changes, then the Constitutional Court will need to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. But it's not easy to push for all these changes that need to happen. And yes, we're really worried about it. And for exactly the reason you say, if people don't have confidence that their votes are going to be counted the way they cast them, then they give up and say, well, why should I vote?
Exactly. In my opinion, that is the right place and the spot where we actually can do more and connect more regarding the relations between NGOs, youth sector and youth organizations, and international missions that are working and implementing their programs here, because we can be a strong voice that advocates for those kind of changes. Because talking about not having elections for 12 years on local level in 21st century is, I don't even have the word to describe.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
And,
it's,
you know,
right.
in my country, in the United States, you know, students are volunteers at polling stations. You know, my daughter, when she was 16, she was, you know, volunteered to work at a polling station. They get trained, they get to show people where to go, they hand out information, you know. So, you know, when people have faith in the elections, people, people, it becomes kind of a community thing. It's not just, controlled by the authorities, but there can be a role for students, for young people, for NGOs to support the process. I'd be curious to hear kind of how things are going for people here on the call in terms of how you're living through the pandemic, and is everybody, what's happening with your education, and I don't know if anyone wants to talk a little bit about their experience right now and what they're expecting for the university, from the university.
For sure. I would ask my friend Milos. He is our president of governing board. He is also here with us. He can maybe jump in. He also has a few questions. He have a few questions here, and he can maybe answer on these questions from your side, and to give a bit more space for the other participants to maybe think about the answers and to come in discussion a few minutes after this. So Milos.
Yeah, thank you, Milos. Firstly, Your Excellency, thank you for accepting this invitation and to join us and continue having this our activity, Coffee with. And I have two questions. These days, because of this COVID-19 situation, a lot of young people using internet and spending a lot of time on internet, and this is the, how to say, good time, or not a good time, but it's increasing maybe some situation regarding internet security. There are a lot of problems. So maybe one of the questions, what is your personal opinion about this specific topic on internet security regarding young people? And maybe do you know some situation that in Bosnia and Herzegovina happened concerning this problem? And the second question would be, like, in your opinion, what could or what is the main problem for young people regarding security?
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm not aware of anything specific to since the pandemic. I don't know if Željka or maybe Bojan is here with us from our security department. Some of the issues that we've seen in the past in education have to do with kind of use of social media platforms, and the way that we've seen issues of harassment and people subjecting themselves without realizing it to kind of harassment from people, or kind of attacks. So that's one thing. And we have done some work in terms of, for example, in Srebrenica, we helped the school publish a little booklet on internet security and ways to stay safe on the internet. So we have done some work in those areas through our education sector. But yeah, you're right. Now, I think because everybody's online, the criminals are online too, and people are taking advantage of people's fears and worries. So I'm afraid we're going to see a lot of new issues crop up in that area. We work more generally in our security area. In our first dimension, we work on cybersecurity, and unfortunately, BiH has not adopted some of the policies that other countries have done yet. They need to do more work on their cybersecurity policies. So that's kind of at the higher level. It's not so particular to students, but definitely it's a growing risk, I think. And the longer that we're staying in this environment, probably the more risks that there will be. And then what was your second question? What are the biggest risks to security? If we're thinking about BiH, I think right now, in a lot of ways, I've lived in a lot of different countries. The security situation in this country is pretty good. Some of the security issues that are more specific would be, gender-based violence is certainly an issue right now. Domestic violence is a growing problem because of everybody staying at home, and because the access for people to get away from abusers is harder now because of safe houses are not all accessible. So those are some of the issues. We're also working on. We continue to work on kind of destruction of small arms and light weapons. As another area, but generally, it seems like the situation is not too bad compared to some other countries. I don't know if Bojan is there, if he wants, from our staff, if he wants to add anything on the security, because he works in our first dimension. Is he there? Bojan, are you there, or did he step away?
Yes, maybe? No, I'm here. Let me just, I don't know if you can hear me. I was just plugging in my headphones because my microphone and headphones is a lot better. So can you hear me?
Maybe, and turn on your video so we can see you.
Ooh, that's a great suggestion. Luckily, I fixed my hair. Hold on a second. So, hello.
Yeah, you look amazing.
Thank you, my dear friend. Yeah.
You can use an avatar.
Actually, I like this backdrop idea a lot, and I had a lot of great ideas with it, but I'll have to figure it out. Yeah, regarding security, a lot has already been mentioned. I think all the areas in which we work and security is obviously a cross-cutting matter. It's not only a first dimension, OSCE first dimension matter, but when it comes to first dimension where I work more, so I would know a little bit more with that. All areas in which we work obviously have some degree of relevance at this point, because all the work we do is based on some needs assessment and communication with counterparts where the needs are obviously expressed as a priority. So whether it's cybersecurity, which the ambassador already mentioned, and especially now that we have reports that during COVID, there has been an increase in malicious activity online, abusing, let's say, the situation and exploiting the vulnerabilities and fears of people when it comes to the crisis. So we're working a little bit in that area too with our Neretva group, which is actually a group that the OSCE mission established in 2018 that brings together relevant decision makers and representatives from the private sector and the public sector from both entities, and they work together on a joint kind of coherent engagement in that field. Right now, they're actually thinking of working on developing an online platform with solutions, digital solutions, apps, and other things that could help both private sector and public sector now, especially with companies being in some degree of trouble, that could help them mitigate the consequences of the current crisis. So cybersecurity-wise, I think that's one area. Small arms and light weapons, as Ambassador also mentioned, in terms of disposal. We've helped establish a really important ammunition testing laboratory in Doboj, actually in the compound of the armed forces of BiH, so that they can have now a state-of-the-art facility to test potentially unstable ammunition, so that we can avoid disasters, unintended explosions, detonations on the sites, and even sabotage and infiltrations. We have installed intruder detection systems and so on. And the other areas, we cover in the first dimension in terms of security, obviously countering terrorism and preventing and countering radicalization, combating radicalization that could lead to terrorism. Terrorism is not a major issue in BiH, but largely as a result of prevention efforts as well. And the mission has done quite a bit. I have to say, I think Milos, as a former member of the Youth Advisory Group, has had insight into some of our prevention activities, where we worked with young people, young women and men. We worked with media and civil society to really emphasize the importance of their role as a partner in that joint security endeavor, because obviously it's very cross-cutting. So I think I would stop there. I mean, there's obviously quite a number of different areas, but I just wanted to touch on those that might sound interesting to you.
Yeah, and thank you, Boyan. And I would just add that, while we're all at home, certain types of crimes have decreased. I was hearing today from the UN that, for example, traffic accidents are way down. So less death from traffic accidents, and certain types of crime is decreased. So, but we're facing new challenges like online, for instance, and then kind of, security issues relating to kind of tensions in the home. So the gender-based violence and domestic violence.
Actually, one thing that I would just add, we have had some reports, and we generally have very close relationship with the security sector counterparts and law enforcement agencies. They are definitely, from day one of the crisis, actually have engaged in contingency planning. They're looking at, they're anticipating and maybe projecting more would be the right word. Certain areas where, as Ambassador already mentioned, certain areas where crime rates could increase as a result of the crisis, maybe as a result of socioeconomic consequences of the crisis, and even in some cases, people just, let's say, mental issues in some cases, due to uncertainty, due to loss of jobs. So they're actually getting ready, and they're planning in that direction to make sure that they have the resources necessary to work in those areas if the problems occur. So that's something that's it's good to know that the institutions of BiH have been doing this kind of work from day one of the crisis.
Yeah, thank you so much, Boyan. And actually, I have to say, now that I saw you, it reminded me that I think my youth advisory certificate is still with you. If not, if maybe in the OSCE head office, then I will talk to Željka later. Yeah. Okay. So maybe to move on, it's already 1 hour that we are in this conversation and event. As I like to say, time lapse fast when you are in a good company. Your Excellency, maybe to announce something, but to stick with the topic that is going to affect us in a few days. That is the 3rd of May and International Day of Media Freedom. So we also have several journalists here with us in this conversation and event. So what about media freedom in our country? What about this huge issue and topic?
Yeah, so first of all, let me give a shout out to the journalists who are there, and to thank you for the work that you do. I think if I had not become a diplomat, I would have become a journalist, because I think it's such a important thing, and it's like one of the most important things right now during the pandemic is access to good, reliable information. So, what responsible, quality journalism can do for us is so important. So it's May 3 is a good day for us all to remember the importance of journalism, good journalism, and to kind of also acknowledge some of the problems that journalists face right now. whether those are kind of attacks on journalism when they report on sensitive topics or sensitive to certain people, whether it's harassment that women journalists face in particular, kind of more vicious types of attacks, whether it's economic pressures, especially right now. Everybody's suffering during the pandemic, but certain, advertising revenue is falling for media outlets, and also some journalists are losing their jobs. So these are all big concerns that we have. I think we were just debating a little bit on the Media Freedom Index for BiH, which shows the BiH slightly improved this year by relative rankings, whether that is really represents any qualitative change in the country, or if it's just a question of how the rankings are done, or maybe other countries have gotten worse. Maybe it's because this is not an election year, so the journalists are not under the same kind of pressures they would be during an election year. But I think the situation is still could be improved in BiH. We have had some concerns this year that we expressed. One of them had to do with the state of emergency, some of the decrees in RS and Republika Srpska related to the decree on emergency, or the state of emergency, about penalties for fake information or false information, which we thought could be used to stifle reporting or lead to censorship and self-censorship. And we were glad to see that that decree was withdrawn after we raised our concerns. I mean, it's during the pandemic. The pandemic is a perfect excuse for people to try to get away with things that maybe they wouldn't do during more normal period, and that includes trying to put restrictions of certain types on certain professions, including journalism. So we're watching that issue carefully right now, and speaking out whenever we see things that concern us. Also, in certain parts of the Federation, we saw similar efforts that we were watching. So these are some of the issues that we see. Certainly, journalists have a hard time in this country for from various aspects, whether it's the economic pressures, whether it's authorities who are unhappy with the reporting, whether it's lack of resources. It's hard to do a really good job if you're not given the time and the resources and the access to do the investigations that you need to do. But for me, free media is one of the cornerstones of a democratic society, and it keeps the government honest. It keeps the citizens informed, and it's something that we should all support. I want to ask Jelka if she wants to add anything, since she is our kind of main liaison with the press. Anything to add?
Nothing. I would just congratulate World Press Freedom Day to Brankica, Natasha, and everybody who is or feels like a journalist in BiH.
With congratulating this day to Brankica and Natasha, you actually congratulated it for almost half of Cerebra. So thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot. As I noticed before, we are already out of time. Related to this question and this issue that can be discussed over and over, and that is really an issue for all of us living here, because media, especially in let's say a time of crisis, are our window to the world, especially now when we are kind of fall under the lockdown. So sometimes my opinion is when choosing between react and act, it is important to react, but sometimes it is more important to act and really to address some questions and issues. That is exactly something that we are trying to do in our organization, and that is why we are looking forward to our future cooperation here, and we are sure that there is going to be some in near future. Once again, I would like to thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed this conversation, and as a youth advisory alumni, really I'm honored and happy to still have a good communication and cooperation with all of you in the OSCE mission in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Also, let me also say that during all of this period and after this everything, after the situation ends, we are open for any kind of let's say meetings or coffee with in person, also in our city, in Banja Luka, or in some other parts of our region, or in Sarajevo as well. If you wish to have any kind of information shared with the youth and young people from our city and our region, please do that. We have our platform that is called mladibl.com. So we are sharing and putting those informations on that platform, making them more visible for young people here. Once again, thank you so much for your time. I would give the floor to you, Your Excellency, one more time for maybe some final touch and final closure of today's event.
Well, thanks so much for having me. As I said, I think this is a great initiative, and I've enjoyed it as well. I really would like to have a chance. I know I'll get back to Banja Luka. I don't know when it will be, but I would love to do a coffee. I love to drink coffee anyway, so that would be nice. And you know, you as previous ambassadors to OSCE, I'm very committed to the youth advisory group, very committed to voices of NGO sector and youth. So we welcome, you know, all kinds of interactions and suggestions. So I also want to wish all of you kind of success. Those of you who are studying, that I hope this period doesn't drag on too long and interfere too much with your studies. I'm sympathetic watching my two students and what they're going through right now. And also, once again, congrats to all the journalists among you. More power to the media, and go out there and bring us back the important stories.
Thank you so much. From all of us from Cerebra, from Banja Luka, we are greeting all of our participants in today's event. Thank you all so much for being today here with us. We have some more coffee bits to drink in upcoming days. So please do follow us on our social medias. And yes, I'm kind of a bit sorry that other participants maybe didn't have enough courage or time and opportunity in this conversation to jump in and to say something, or at least to answer on some of your quality questions that you said before. But for sure, I think that we are going to look up for some other also opportunities in the future to bring young people on the same place, and to discuss more and to give them the floor to speak. Once again, happy International Media Freedom Day, 3rd of May. Happy International Labor Day, 1st of May. I wish you all everything best. Once again, Ambassador, thank you, really thank you for your time and for being here with us. This was Coffee With. And what the media is allowed to say in these days, stay safe, be positive, and stay negative. Thanks again, and see you soon.
All right, bye. Thank you.